All right. Let's dive into something super fun today.
Okay. Puppies.
Oh, yay! Everybody loves talking about
Like,
puppies.
who doesn't love a puppy?
Yeah.
But, those of us who have had them, and I say this as someone with a now senior dog,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always easy.
No,
It is a journey.
it is.
And so we're bringing you this deep dive to kind of arm you with some information so that you can be the best puppy parent possible.
Yes.
And we're taking our cues today from, honestly, who seems to have it more figured out than the Danes when it comes to dog training.
You really do.
Like, have you ever met an unruly Danish dog? I'm not sure that I have.
I haven't.
So we're going to be talking about an article from Onlinehund.dk, which is a Danish dog training website.
And what I really love about this is they emphasize this idea of understanding the puppy's developmental stage and how that connects to successful training.
Yes, it's so important because so many people get caught up in the cuteness and forget that there's a developing brain in there.
Absolutely. And, there are certain things that are just going to be more effective in certain times.
Right.
And so they break it down into these distinct phases that a puppy goes through, starting with this, I love this, the vegetative phase.
The vegetative phase.
Which sounds a little...
Yeah, it makes me think of like a science fiction movie.
I know, like what is happening?
Oh.
Or are they like little pod people?
Yeah, exactly. But it's really just the first 2 weeks of life.
Okay.
Where they're really just, sleeping, eating, developing those essential senses.
Yeah.
It's all instinct and bonding with mom.
So really the newborn stage.
Exactly.
Where you're not doing a ton of interaction.
Right.
But then things shift gears pretty quickly into the transition phase.
Yes.
So this is weeks 2 through 4.
Yes.
And this is where their senses are really starting to sharpen.
Yeah, their eyes are open. They're starting to walk around a little bit clumsily, but they're moving.
Yes.
And Onlinehund.dk really stresses the importance of gentle human interaction here.
Okay.
And we're not talking about training yet.
Right.
But simple things like gently stroking their paws, getting them used to their ears being touched, just starting to build those positive associations.
So they're not afraid of having their paws touched later.
Exactly.
Which is so important for so many dogs.
It really is.
Who don't like their nails clipped or their paws touched.
It's setting them up for success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these little things that you might not even think about can actually really impact their development.
Absolutely.
And then we hit what the Danes call the pregningsfase.
Yes.
Weeks 4 to 7.
So for those of us who don't speak Danish.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's the imprinting phase.
The imprinting phase.
And it is crucial.
And it seems like it's really about them forming their core associations with the world.
Yes. Good, bad, safe, scary. This is when they're really figuring out what's okay and what's not okay.
Right.
And this is also where we start talking about environmental training.
Okay, so not just the socialization, but this idea of environmental training.
Right.
Which I think is fascinating. Yeah. Because I think we often think about socialization in terms of other dogs.
Right.
But this is a little bit different.
Is.
What kinds of things are we talking about?
So think vacuum cleaners.
Okay.
Different floor textures, umbrellas opening and closing.
Oh, interesting.
It's about creating a rich and diverse sensory experience.
So that the world doesn't feel like a scary place.
Exactly.
So as they go out into the world and they encounter new things, it's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal because they've had those positive or at least neutral associations early on.
Right. Oh, that's a good point. Not even positive.
Yes.
Just like neutral, like it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
Exactly.
And this phase kind of overlaps with that classic socialization phase that we hear so much about, which is, weeks 8 to 12.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when puppies are typically going home with their families.
Exactly.
So they're, experiencing all these new things for the first time.
And they should be.
Right.
It's so important to get them out there.
So it's about building on that environmental training while also introducing them to a world of people and places and experiences.
Yes. And they really stress the importance of building a strong bond during this time as well.
Okay.
Starting to introduce those really basic commands like sit and stay.
Right.
House training.
Of course.
All of those fun things.
Right. Because that's critical too.
Absolutely.
And they talk about using positive reinforcement right from the start.
Yes.
Which makes sense.
It's all about building that relationship. And that leads us to the next phase, which they call the Rengårdningsfasen.
The what?
Rengårdningsfasen.
Okay, so we need a pronunciation guide.
We do need a pronunciation guide on that one.
But essentially, what are we talking about here?
Essentially, it's the ranking phase.
Okay.
And so this is typically from looks 13 to 16.
So they're getting a little older.
Yes.
A little more...
They're getting a little bolder.
A little bolder, yes.
Testing those boundaries a little bit more.
And I think Onlinehund.dk connects this directly to hormonal changes.
They do.
That first stage of
That's right.
sexual maturity.
It is.
And so they stress that training consistency is really key during this time.
Absolutely, because you want to establish those clear boundaries. You want to prevent power struggles later on.
So this is where we might see like a little bit of that teenage testing the boundaries energy.
Yes, exactly.
Chocolate.
Yes. And they really emphasize short, clear commands, practice daily.
Okay, so consistency is key.
Consistency is key.
Yeah.
Be firm, be fair, and be super consistent.
Even if your puppy's pushing the boundaries a little bit.
Even if they are, because they will test you. I promise you this.
Oh, they will.
They will.
They will test you.
Yes.
So we've got all these phases, and I think what I'm appreciating about this approach is it's not just about teaching your dog to sit and stay.
Right.
It's really about working with their natural instincts at each stage.
Exactly.
And using that knowledge to kind of guide your training.
And make it easier on both of you.
Yes. Because if you're working with them, it's going to be a lot easier than trying to force them into something that they're not developmentally ready for.
It's like anything else. You have to meet them where they're at.
Exactly. And this ranking phase, as fun as it sounds, it's not the only critical period they highlight, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
In fact, it leads directly into the next one, which they call the Flock-Daniels phasen.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to make me pronounce that, are you?
Yeah, we'll give you a pass on that one. It's the pack formation phase.
Okay, the pack formation phase.
And it typically happens between 4 and 7 months of age.
Okay, so they're getting a little older.
They are.
And what are we really focusing on during this time?
So this is about solidifying that bond that you've built.
Okay.
Really establishing that clear communication with your dog.
So all that early work we were talking about, building that trust and understanding.
It starts to really pay off here.
Okay, this is where it starts to come together.
This is where it comes together.
And Onlinehund.dk talks about this being the prime time for really diving into positive reinforcement training.
Yes.
What does that look like in action during this phase?
So you're rewarding the behaviors you want to see more of.
Okay.
You're redirecting any unwanted behaviors, and you're really just focusing on building that strong positive connection.
So it's not about punishment, it's about rewarding the good stuff.
Exactly. It's about showing your puppy that being with you, listening to you, it's rewarding. It's fun.
It should be fun.
This should be fun for both of you.
Puppies are supposed to be fun.
They are.
Sometimes challenging, but fun.
Yes.
And this is kind of, I think, where a lot of people picture puppyhood, right?
Right.
All the zoomies and the playing.
Yes.
But then, of course, puberty hits.
Yes, it does.
And the Danes even have a term for this.
They do. It is the Pubertätsphasen.
The Pubertätsphasen. We're getting a lot of good Danish words in here.
Oh, right. We'll have to do a whole episode on just Danish dog training terms.
We should.
But anyway, this usually occurs between 7 to 10 months of age.
Okay.
And just like human teenagers, those hormones can lead to some interesting behavioral changes.
Okay, so what are we talking? Are we talking like back talking? Are we talking?
Maybe not back talking,
Okay.
but definitely some stubbornness, maybe some regression in training.
Oh, no. All that hard work.
Well, it's not all lost.
Okay.
It's just those hormones surging. They're trying to figure everything out.
So they might forget that they're supposed to sit when we tell them to.
They might test those boundaries a little bit more. But the key takeaway here, and I think this is crucial for any dog owner to remember, is that patience and understanding are paramount during this phase.
Okay, so take a deep breath.
Take a deep breath. It's temporary.
They will get through it.
They will get through.
We will all get through it together.
Exactly. And think back to that strong foundation you've built in those earlier stages.
Right?
That's what's going to help you navigate this one.
So it's also like riding a wave.
It is kind of like riding a wave.
You just got to ride it out.
You just got to ride it out.
And know that there's smoother sailing on the other side.
Well, smoother might be a bit of an overstatement.
Okay.
But definitely a new chapter.
A new chapter.
Okay. A new chapter in Onlinehund.dk points out something really fascinating that I think a lot of people, even experienced dog owners, might not realize. One of the most significant phases for really solidifying those training skills happens after that initial puberty craziness.
Wait, really?
Yes.
So we get them through puppyhood, and then we think, okay, we're good. We could just coast from here.
A lot of people think that.
And they're saying no.
They're saying no, there's more to it.
There's more.
There's more, and they call this the dress periodin.
The what?
Dress periodin, which translates roughly to training period.
The training period. So there's a whole other training period after the puppy phase.
Yes. It's that sweet spot when your dog is both physically and mentally mature enough for more advanced learning.
Okay, so what age are we talking here? Because they're not puppies anymore.
Right. So this typically falls between 10 and 17 months.
Okay.
Although they do stress that it can vary depending on breed and individual dogs.
Sure, of course.
But what makes this distinct is that your dog is past those initial hormonal surges of puberty.
Okay, so they've calmed down a little bit.
They've calmed down, their brains have essentially caught up with their bodies.
So they can focus a little better.
Exactly. They have more consistent energy levels, they're less likely to be ruled by those teenage impulses.
Okay.
And they're entering what Onlinehund.dk refers to as a period of psychic sexual maturation, where their social behavior truly solidifies.
Psychic sexual maturation. Did I hear that correctly?
You did!
Okay, this sounds intense.
It is, and it's one of the most overlooked stages even by experienced owners.
Really?
Yes, they call it the psykiska kunstmodning.
Okay, we're just going to go with psychic sexual maturation
We'll go with that.
for now.
And it typically happens between 17 and 22 months.
Okay, so this is like their final evolution into...
In a way,
Yes.
a mature dog.
They're figuring out their place in the world, not just within your family unit.
So it's not just learning to be a good dog. It's learning to be a good dog in the world.
Exactly.
That's fascinating.
It is, and this is why they emphasize that training, true training, doesn't stop just because your dog has mastered sit and stay.
Right.
It's about continually strengthening that communication, reinforcing good habits, and understanding that your dog is constantly learning and adapting throughout their lives.
It's almost like they're teenagers until they're like 2.
In a way, yes.
Which, I mean, if you think about it in terms of dog years, that makes sense.
It's like they're only really adults for a short period of time,
Right.
relatively speaking.
Relatively speaking.
Which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about it that way.
It is.
That bringing a puppy home is just the beginning of a much larger journey.
It is. And it's a journey that requires us as owners to keep learning and adapting right alongside them.
We've talked about a lot of different phases today.
We have.
And, you know, I think what's clear is that these Danish trainers, they're not messing around.
No, they're not.
They're really advocating for like a deep understanding
Yes.
of how dogs develop and how they learn.
It's not just about teaching tricks.
Right. And it's not something that stops when they're puppies.
Absolutely not.
This is a lifelong thing.
It is.
And what's interesting to me is that this approach, it's not just Denmark, right? Like this focus on positive reinforcement, working with the dog's natural instincts,
Right.
understanding these developmental stages.
This is something that we're seeing more and more of in the dog training world.
So it's like a global trend,
It is a global trend.
but it makes you wonder how much of it is cultural too.
Right.
Because, I mean, you rarely hear stories about unruly Danish dogs.
Right. You never hear somebody say, oh, that Danish dog is so out of control.
Exactly.
Never.
So is it something in the water over there?
Maybe it's the magical fjords.
Maybe. Or is there something more to it?
I think it goes deeper than that.
Okay.
I mean, Denmark has a long history of dog ownership.
They do.
And I think over the centuries, they've really had time to refine their approach.
So it's become ingrained in the culture. It's not just a nice to do. It's like you have a dog, you train your dog.
It's part of being a responsible owner.
Yes.
And you can see that reflected in how much emphasis they place on early socialization, positive training methods.
So it's really a mindset shift.
It is.
More than anything.
Yes. It's about moving away from that idea of dominance or making a dog obey.
Right.
And instead embracing this idea of partnership.
Of understanding.
Yes.
And working together.
Exactly.
Which I love that.
And that's something that every dog owner, regardless of where they live or what breed they have, can benefit from.
Absolutely. This whole deep dive has been so eye-opening for me.
It's really fascinating to see how other cultures approach dog training.
It is. And I think what I'm taking away from it is this idea that training is not a one-time deal.
Right.
It's not just about getting through puppyhood.
Yeah. It's an ongoing conversation.
It is.
A lifelong process.
We are learning and growing with our dogs
Absolutely.
throughout their lives.
And the more we understand about how their brains work, the different developmental stages they go through, the better equipped we'll be to navigate those challenges and build those truly remarkable bonds.
Well said. That is a wrap on this deep dive into the world of Danish dog training.
I'm ready for a Danish pastry now.
Me too. If you want to explore this topic further, though, be sure to check out the show notes. We've got a link to the full Onlinehund.dk article.
And don't forget that glossary of Danish dog training terms.
Yes, you'll be able to impress all your friends
That's right.
with your Danish dog training knowledge.
Exactly.
Until next time, happy training, and may your puppy adventures be filled with joy, understanding.
And maybe just a few less chewed shoes along the way.
Always a good thing.
Always a good thing.